Matter Protocol was supposed to end the smart home compatibility war. 2.5 years after launch, the picture is far messier than the press releases suggested. According to a Connectivity Standards Alliance status report from March 2026, only 41% of certified Matter devices actually work across all 4 major ecosystems without quirks. The promise was universal. The reality is selective. Let me explain what Matter actually is before tearing into what it isn't. Matter is an application layer protocol that runs over Wi-Fi or Thread. The Connectivity Standards Alliance, which includes Apple, Google, Amazon, and Samsung, governs the spec. Version 1.4 launched in late 2025 and added support for solar inverters, EV chargers, and water heaters. So far, so good on paper. Here's the first crack. Matter only handles basic device functions. A smart bulb's on, off, brightness, and color temperature work great across platforms. But if you bought a Hue bulb for its scenes and dynamic effects, those features only work in the Hue app. Matter ignores them. Tom's Guide tested this in February and found roughly 60% of advanced features bypass the standard entirely. Thread is the wireless mesh layer that was supposed to replace Zigbee. It does work mostly. The Aero, Apple TV 4K, HomePod Mini, and Nest Hub 2nd Gen all act as Thread border routers. The problem is that border routers from different vendors don't always cooperate. Wirecutter documented a case in January where a Google Nest router refused to expose Thread devices to an Apple Home setup despite both being Matter certified. Multi-admin mode was the dream. One device, multiple platforms, no fighting. In practice, Matter multi-admin works for binding to 2 or 3 controllers. Beyond that, devices start getting flaky. A CNET reviewer documented sensors going offline after being added to 4 hubs simultaneously. The spec allows it. The firmware often doesn't handle it gracefully. The setup experience is genuinely better. Scan a QR code with your phone, the device joins your network, and the ecosystem picks it up. Compared to the old days of Zigbee pairing dances, this is night and day. Linus Tech Tips ran a Matter onboarding test in 2025 and got a smart plug from box to working in under 90 seconds. That part of the promise is real. Now here's where the manufacturers play games. Acura, Nanoleaf, and several others ship Matter-compatible products but lock the best automations behind their proprietary apps. You can pair an Acura contact sensor with Apple Home via Matter, but the long press and double press features only work in the Acura Home app. Read the fine print before you buy expecting full Matter parity. Cameras and video doorbells are Matter's biggest hole. The 1.3 spec added camera support, but adoption is glacial. As of May 2026, fewer than 20 cameras are Matter certified, and the major players like Ring, Arlo, and Nest still keep video streams locked to their own apps. If you want a unified camera view, Matter does not solve this yet. Robot vacuums are another gap. Matter 1.4 added support, but Roborock, iRobot, and Eufy ship Matter for basic start and stop commands only. Mapping, room cleaning, and scheduling stay in proprietary apps. If you want a true smart home dashboard that controls everything, you still need the original app for 90% of the value. Energy management devices are where Matter is getting interesting. The new spec covers solar inverters, batteries, EV chargers, and heat pumps. Schneider Electric demonstrated a fully Matter-compatible energy stack at CES 2026. If your local utility offers demand response programs, this is the area to watch. But the device ecosystem is months behind the spec. Let's talk about what actually works well. Smart plugs, switches, basic bulbs, contact sensors, motion sensors, and door locks. The simple devices Matter was designed for genuinely work cross-ecosystem. I have an Acura contact sensor that works simultaneously in Apple Home and Home Assistant via Matter, and it has never dropped offline in 4 months. The Thread border router situation deserves its own warning. If you don't have at least one Thread border router in your home, your Thread Matter devices won't work at all. A HomePod Mini, Apple TV 4K, 2nd Gen Nest Hub, or Aero are the most common options. Without one, you need to use Wi-Fi Matter devices, which are typically more expensive. Pricing is where Matter quietly disappoints. Matter certified devices average 18 to 30% more expensive than equivalent Zigbee versions, according to a Tom's Guide market survey from April. The Acura T1 Matter plug costs $28 versus $18 for the equivalent Zigbee model. Certification fees and royalties get passed to consumers. Firmware updates are a chronic issue. Matter relies on the controlling ecosystem to push firmware. Apple Home does this poorly. Google Home is better. Amazon falls somewhere in the middle. If you bought a Matter device expecting it to get the same updates regardless of platform, that turned out not to be true. Some bug fixes only ship through certain ecosystems. Home Assistant might be the secret hero of Matter. Because it sits outside the big ecosystems, it tends to expose more of what a Matter device actually offers. The Home Assistant Matter integration unlocked features on my Eve Energy plug that Apple Home hid. If you're technically inclined, this is the way to actually use what you paid for. Security got an upgrade with Matter, and this part is real. Every Matter device uses certificate-based authentication, requires explicit user consent for pairing, and encrypts all local traffic. This is significantly better than older protocols that often relied on weak default passwords. The CSA also runs a public vulnerability disclosure program with documented response times. Voice control across platforms is still spotty. Saying turn off the kitchen light works on every assistant. But complex requests like dim the kitchen light to 30% and change to warm white often break on one or two assistants depending on how the device exposes the commands. Test the exact phrases you care about before assuming parity. If you're starting from scratch in 2026, Matter is still the right choice. Newer hardware, better security, easier setup, and at least functional cross-platform support. Just don't believe the marketing that says it solves everything. Plan for one primary ecosystem, treat the rest as backups, and keep the original apps installed. If you have an existing Zigbee or Z-Wave investment, don't rush to replace it. Mature Zigbee networks with a Home Assistant or Hubitat hub still outperform most Matter setups on reliability and feature depth. Matter is the future, but the future is still loading. The bridges exist if you need to connect old and new. Here is a buying rule I follow now. If the device is simple and used by multiple family members, buy Matter. If the device has complex features I actually use, buy the manufacturer's proprietary version. The dream of one standard for everything has become a useful filter for what devices need to be cross-platform versus single-platform. Apple users get the cleanest Matter experience because Apple controls the hardware and software end-to-end. Google is improving rapidly with Google Home for Web and the new automation builder. Amazon is the laggard, treating Matter as a checkbox feature without investing in the experience. SmartThings sits in a class of its own with the most Matter device certifications. The CSA roadmap for late 2026 includes cameras with full streaming support, network controllers, and major appliances like washing machines. If those land smoothly, Matter will actually start fulfilling its original promise. If they ship buggy like cameras did, expect another year of fragmentation. One real benefit nobody talks about. Matter devices typically draw less standby power than older protocol devices because of Thread's low-power design. The Eve motion sensor on Thread runs 3+ years on 2 batteries. The Zigbee equivalent runs about 18 months. Across 30 sensors in a house, this matters. Diagnostic tools for Matter are still primitive. When something breaks, you often can't tell if the issue is the device, the border router, the controller, or the spec implementation. Home Assistant has the best logging. Apple Home gives you nothing. Plan for some frustration when troubleshooting until the tooling catches up. But there's one thing manufacturers hide. Many Matter devices include legacy Bluetooth or proprietary radios that phone home with telemetry even when you think Matter is the only active protocol. Unify was caught doing this in a security audit published last December. The Matter certification doesn't audit data exfiltration practices. Subscribe to Espacio Intelligent if you want the next video, which breaks down Apple Home versus Google Home versus Alexa with the actual 2026 benchmark scores. We test response time, automation reliability, and voice command accuracy across 200 devices. Comment which ecosystem you're locked into so I can prioritize the deep dive you need.